Hello and welcome. In this episode, I'm going to be interviewing Edwin Oslan, creator and host of the Savage Hippie podcast. Edwin is a fun guy, young guy, new to the conservative movement, or as I call it, the alt-right. He's high energy, very funny, as you'll come to see in the interview. And he is also a Yid, a Hebrew, an Israelite. Some people say kike. I don't use that word anymore.
Why not?
I think you're one of the worst Jews, though, too, aren't you? One of the Ashkenazi Jews. You know, you think Marx, Trotsky, Boaz, the worst kind of Jews. You're the kind of people that brought us pornography, the Federal Reserve, all that horrible stuff. But if Edwin does a good job, we're going to make him an honorary Aryan. So if he does good in this interview, all will be right with the world. Anyway, and just so the audience knows, this is our second attempt at this interview because me being the dumb goy that I am, I did not have the recorder turned on. So unfortunately, Edwin is going to be forced to regurgitate the stuff he had just been talking to me about for the last 20 minutes. Anyway, Edwin, how are you? And I'm sorry to do this to you, bro, but could you just tell our audience a bit about yourself? And I know this is tough because you just had to do it 20 minutes ago, but tell us a bit about yourself, your podcast, who you are, and how you came into the conservative movement.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Well, initially you'd asked how I came to the alt-right, so I wanted to clarify that I don't want to be like a Milo type where I speak for the alt-right because I read a lot of the alt-right blogs, and a lot of them, people want like an all-white ethno-state or they're white nationalists, and I just want to say that I'm okay with them wanting that. There's no thought crime as far as I'm concerned. I'm more of just a libertarian who supports everyone's right to be around whoever they want, to say whatever they want, to not have the government force political correctness down people's throats. And I think that the alt-right is a great reaction against that, even if some of the stuff they say is obviously a lot of the let's put it this way. A few years ago, I never thought I'd be listening to a podcast called The Daily Shoah, but I find it very amusing. They've got a lot of – they're actually very witty and funny, which is something I wouldn't have expected 5-10 years ago where, I was very binary. You're either racist or you're not racist. And since I came to alt-right and the sort of contrarian sphere of that type of thinking, that's sort of gone out the window. So the sort of binary, if you do X, Y, and Z, you're racist, but if you don't, you're not, is one of the reasons it appeals to me. Initially, I was just what you would call just a regular mainstream libertarian, where I would tell people I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative.
Well, can I stop you on that social liberal and fiscally conservative? Would you still say that's accurate about you? That you, I mean, now that you've spent a lot more time around people in the conservative movement and gotten to know them and heard some of the arguments, has that shifted your views about social conservatism? Are you more open to being more socially conservative?
Well, it's just not something I think about anymore. Like, I'll talk to I have gay friends, and I'll spout the same right-wing stuff because I don't care what they do behind closed doors. I don't care, about any of that type of stuff. What's important to me is the consistency. So it's something like, I'll say, you're gay, so you shouldn't be liberal because liberals support Muslims who are anti-gay. And as far as I know, the most hard-right paleo-conservatives at most might have never really outlawed homosexuality. So the whole notion of social conservatism or social liberalism is not really something I really think about that deeply. I just think do what you want behind closed doors as long as it doesn't make someone else uncomfortable. And with that, all these gay pride parades where you got the guys with the jock straps and the thongs dancing on floats, I don't think that's appropriate. I think they should use some discretion. So to say I'm more socially conservative, or I guess in a very broad sense. I mean, I don't want to marry a slut, who's gotten gangbanged. So I guess that would put me more on the socially conservative side. But I don't know if did that answer your question. I mean,
yeah, I think it does. It's not it's not really a binary thing. Like, as you've come to find out, it's not like you're just this or you're just that. But I think, like myself, I used to kind of describe myself that way as you did, where I would say I'm physically conservative and social liberal. And part of it is comes with age, though. I have gotten a lot more socially conservative, but also just empiricism has led me to being more socially conservative. Like, I see the negative effects on society and on individuals just having this kind of libertine lifestyle. I don't think it's healthy for society or for the individual's soul. And I don't mean soul in the religious sense, the metaphorical sense. I just don't think it's happy for girls to have, 50 sexual partners, things like that. I think there's a lot of negative effects to that. And that's kind of what I was getting at, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, certainly. Well, that's the thing. That's something that a lot of people I've noticed have to they have to find the some sort of middle ground, because a lot of people get into the alt-right through the Manosphere, and the Manosphere has a lot of the people get into that through the pickup artists and learning game and learning how to bang as many women as possible, but at the same time that the need to learn game. I don't know about game necessarily, but just to be a little more smooth with women. I don't typically get into pickup artist stuff only because it's just so complicated. I don't have the time to figure out all the different chess style, game moves. I'd rather just go out with a girl and it usually works out because I'm a charming guy. But the thing is that in order for guys to get a lot of pussy, there's got to be sluts to give them that pussy. The reason there's so many sluts is because feminism made it that way so that women feel more comfortable to go out and sleep with a guy the very night they meet him. So it's like you have to choose. What do you want? Do you want to eliminate that sort of fun college lifestyle and make girls all go back to being 1950 style girls where you have to pitch woo and you have to take them out 3 or 4 times before they kiss you on the, even kiss you? Or do you want to have them be all slutted up and loose so that you can just bang them right away? It's sort of like, which one do guys want? And it's a tough choice. It seems like guys are sort of just reacting to where society has gone. You're in college and you see everyone else is doing it and you're like, well, I want to be part of this party. I don't want to be left out.
Well, guys are always going to want to get laid. That's
yeah.
just, women are the gatekeepers of sexuality.
Well, that's true, but if it was the 50s and you're a guy and every single guy is Casanova, who's going to marry any of these girls and continue and make families? You know what I mean? Like some guys have to say, I'm not Casanova. I just want a family. I just want one girl. You know what I mean? Like somewhere someone's got to put a stop to it. Either the girls got to go back to being more chaste, or the guys have to, not give in to instant gratification. I don't know. I don't know where the middle ground is. That's why it's hard to turn. Because obviously, if you go out and you go out to a bar and some girl throws herself at you, you're gonna, what are you gonna turn her down?
No. I agree with you. I think that women are the ones that need to kind of shame these other women who act like sluts. So, because that's actually how before you had this, second and third wave feminism, basically it was women that kind of made sure that other women didn't behave that way because there were consequences. They'd be ostracized. And women above all want to fit in. Women don't get rewarded by being outliers in society, which men generally do. Men get rewarded by, being the first one to do something, whether it's summit Mount Everest or, set foot on the moon. Men get rewarded by acting different, acting crazy. It's risk too. That's why a lot of these guys don't live as long, but they have more sexual partners. But women, women have to be part of the group. And there was a time for most of society where this kind of slut behavior, which has been normalized, was shamed. And it was kind of women kind of policing themselves. And then you had this feminism thing that came about where it kind of said, oh, you go, girl, and you can be just like a man and sleep with men the way men sleep with women, and it'll all just work out. And a lot of women now are finding this out in their late 20s and 30s. It's all of a sudden they realize that they slept with all these guys and they got nothing to show for it except maybe a few abortions and maybe a STD here and there.
Well, yeah, what I said, the feminism's three biggest accomplishments were making it easier for guys to get laid, we're helping profit medical companies who sell antidepressants, and to help pet store owners sell more household pets. I agree with
the people who make cat food
are rolling in dough now thanks to feminism.
Yeah, they'd be all out of business if it wasn't for feminism.
And a quarter of women are now on antidepressants.
Well, you know what's really scary about the fact that a quarter of women are on antidepressants?
What's that?
That means that 75% of all women are running around unmedicated.
Yeah, I guess. But the thing is, though, is that...
I'm just joking.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying. But, yeah, so the question is, who's supposed... I mean, if you eventually want society to kind of normalize itself, who's got to put the effort in? Is it the women? So you're saying the women should be the ones who should start shaming other women for being too slutty, or should the guys start kind of like, instead of fucking every girl that throws herself at them, say, you know what, I'm seeing someone, or maybe I'll get your number and we'll go out a few times. I know that sounds very, very 1950s and very prudish, but who should be the one pushing that forward?
Well, it needs to be both, obviously, but ultimately it has to be women. And what I would say is the family structure. I believe that women that come from a healthy family structure where they have a mother and a father, ideally a mother that stays home and raises the children, these are the women that are most likely to not engage in this hookup culture and lifestyle where they have lots of sexual partners and, embrace this kind of feminist nonsense and all that kind of thing. You'll notice that a lot of the women that tend to gravitate towards this nonsense are women that come from broken homes. I mean, these are all the ones with all the baby daddies and stuff like that. Women who had a strong father and a mother that stayed at home and raised them right. They didn't engage in this nonsense.
Right. They didn't go home with They didn't go home with a guy like the night they meet him. Yeah, I mean, it's a tough call because on one hand you want to. I mean, on one hand you're young and virile, so you're like, oh man, sweet, I want to go home with someone. But on the other hand,
hey buddy, I'm old and virile, and I like to go home with someone. But anyway, go ahead.
There you go. I mean, I'm just saying that's what it comes to. That's why I mean, maybe feminism is beneficial that way. That it just made it easier for us.
Oh yeah, I would never have had the number of sexual partners I did if I grew up in the 1950s.
Certainly.
So, and you could argue that it benefited me as an individual, but in a global sense, it was detrimental to society.
Right, and I mean, then you look at the macro sense, where a number of white people that are breeding is going down, while third world people are coming into the United States and outbreeding them, and ultimately we're eventually going to be a Mera Mexico stan. But anyway, earlier we were talking about the RNC. I didn't want to just talk to go into all this like kind of manosphere type topics because a lot of people talk about. I mean, unless you want to talk about that.
No. Okay, let's go on to the RNC. Let's talk about your adventures there and the people you met, both the crazy SJWs and some of the big names in the alt-right too. So tell us some stories.
Okay, so the funniest thing about the RNC was we were expecting the last day, Thursday, during Donald Trump's speech to be this the blowout. So they said from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. there was going to be a protest, and they were going to bust in all these Black Lives Matter people who were going. I mean, it was just going to be just chaos. And it petered out so pathetically on the last day that Matt Forney, I and like 6 other dudes sat at a table and we watched Donald Trump's speech at a bar. Like it was like a sport night. It was so mundane. But the first day was when we got the most excitement because we went to an anti-Donald Trump rally, and I wouldn't really call it an anti-Donald Trump rally. It's an anti-Donald Trump rally in everything but name. I mean, in name only, because every single leftist cause under the sun was there, from pro-choice to gay rights to I think Save the Whales might have been there. Everything was there, and then one of the speakers said, "We don't want Donald Trump, and we don't want Hillary Clinton." And I'm thinking, well, then what do you want? Like, what are you here for? Just to shout at people? I'm like, what? And so we stood out a little bit because we were giggling to each other and nudging each other and stuff like that. And Forney was doing a live stream for Red Ice Radio, and we were outed when Fat Albert, also known as Daryl Jenkins, this overweight, extremely nerdy black man who works for One People's Project.
Could you describe his grotesqueness to our audience? Like, just tell us how horrible he looks like.
Well, he just looks like he's overweight. I mean, he's got a huge belly, and he looks really just sad. I mean, he doesn't look like he's happy. He looks like his entire employment is contingent upon reporting other people. He's basically living vicariously through the people he hates. That's a good way to put it. It's almost like he loves the fact that there's people that are politically against him because it's like he sees it and he's like, you guys are having all the fun, so I'm gonna film you and get you fired. I mean, that's his job, is to get people fired.
So I heard stories. He's kind of like a professional doxer almost. Like he goes out and he tries to expose people, like get them to try to like lose their jobs and things like that.
Yeah, and it's funny too because he puts a camera right in your face, and it's like, for someone like me, I work in a job where, one, I don't think the management would care if they did know what I was doing, but I don't think he'd be able to find it anyway. It's not, so it's sort of a useless thing, but he acts like he acts so smug about it, and that he's crying inside. That, like, he knows his life is a complete waste. He knows how useless he is. And, like, he sees Forney, and he looks over his shoulder, and he looks at what he's typing on his phone, and he goes, Philando Castile is not a Crip. And Forney looks at him, and he's like, I know who you are. You're Matt Forney. You're the white supremacist. If you don't leave within a few minutes, I'm going to tell everyone here. And so Forney's like, tries to shake his hand. The guy didn't want to. He's like, I don't shake hands with trash like you. So we leave, and he was like the mall cop in Mallrats, LaFours. So we would follow the protest going one direction, and there he'd be sitting, of course, not standing, and it'd be like, oh geez, like, hey guys, like, oh my god, it's Jenkins. Do you know any? I mean, his name is fucking Jenkins. That's like the name of someone in school you knew that you absolutely hated. He's like, it's like, oh boy, it's Jenkins again. And,
so this guy was pretty much like stalking you that whole day. Or I mean that's that part of the day anyway.
I would like to think so, just to add more drama to the story, but it's probably more our fault because every time we follow the protest, he would just be there. But it would be funny. I mean, it looked like it was in a movie. Like, oh my god, how'd you find us again? But basically, we followed these protests around various blocks, and then this one guy tried to, like, goad Forney by getting in his face, and he's, like, coming on to him, and he's like, oh, Matt Forney, you're so sexy, this, like, homosexual come on, and, is obviously trying to, like, make him feel uncomfortable, and Matt's like, I don't give a fuck, he's just like, I'm just filming you guys are complete retards. That dissipated, and then we were caught filming them again, and all of a sudden we were swarmed by like 20 of these kids, like anorexic social justice warriors, feminists. I guess some of them were from Antifa, but I wouldn't know one way or another. They were just really skinny and scrawny, and then you had some kind of cute chicks that, like, daddy didn't love them or something, and it was me and Craig. And they separated us. It was me, Forney, and Craig. They separated Forney. He goes in one direction. They swarm around him. Then they swarm around us. And there's cops there. And then it's like, I'm standing there next to Craig, and we're like, what do you guys want? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? And they're staring at us, asking us stupid questions like, are you guys racist? Are you guys sexist? Do you feel like women should be in the kitchen? And I'm just like, oh, this is so obnoxious. Like, it wasn't even like, what is going on here? Don't you kids have jobs? And then the cops dissipated, and I'm like, oh crap, now I gotta deal with them on our own. So this girl, and she's pretty hot. I'm saying, like, this girl, like, she's got tattoos, and she's got black hair, and she's standing there, and I'm like, gets in my face, and I'm like, if only this happened to me, like, at a bar. But it's gotta happen to me here.
Yeah.
And I go, can I go? And she's like, no. And I go, okay. So I tried to push her aside, and someone goes, oh, so now you're hitting women? I go, what do you mean? Like, I thought the whole point was that now we're equals and that we're allowed to hit each other. And it was just this dumb standoff, and finally Craig goes, you guys are doing something illegal. The cop hears illegal, he turns around, and he breaks it up. And I'm like, thankfully, thank goodness I could get out of there. And then the next day we were around where the flag was burned.
Yeah, talk a little bit about, like, I know when we talked earlier, unfortunately that wasn't recorded, but you said there was a large crowd of people and it was kind of hard to, like, see what was going on. My question about that was, because I did see that made the news. I saw it in some of the periscopes that I watched at the RNC. But when that was going on, were the majority of the people around that flag burning, were they the SJW types, or were they the pro-Trump types? I mean, was it everybody kind of converging, or was it 99% SJW types that were in that circle?
From my understanding, it was literally like some asshole burning a flag, some cops arresting him, and a bunch of press people watching it. It was so uneventful that the fact that the news media turned it into an event just shows how little was going on outside the RNC. But the part that I enjoyed was when some of these SJWs saw me, the same ones from the day before, and they go, "It's that Nazi!" and they start chanting Nazi. And mind you, this is just them chanting it, so it sounds loud. There's like 5 or 10 of them, and everyone else is just like, who gives a shit? And I'm standing there. They're chanting Nazi, and I'm like, whatever, who cares? And then these 2 girls come back, and as I told one of them, I'm like, you'd be cuter if you had more hair up there and less under your arms. And she's like, well, I don't care what you think. And then one of our dudes is filming them. When you film them, they can't do anything. So he's filming this girl, and she didn't know how to react because she couldn't hit anyone. That would be assault, so she throws water in his face, which is technically assault. And then this guy with a video camera starts asking me questions, normal questions, like normal guy who's just doing this for his elementary school civics class, and he goes, I just like to ask you why you're a Trump supporter and all this stuff. So I'm trying to give him normal answers, and every time I open my mouth, they're like, why are you giving that Nazi a platform to speak? And I look at them, and I roll my eyes, and I go, see, like. And he's like, yeah, I know, I get you. I gave him I basically said, like, normal stuff about Trump. And they're just like, you shouldn't let that Nazi talk. Oh, this guy's horrible. And it was a trip. It was really funny. All on my phone. I should put it up on YouTube, on my channel. But that was it.
Well,
nothing.
I hate to make you talk about it again, but tell us about the night that you went to the party there, where Milo and.
Oh yeah. Then that was the night. We went to the Milo party. I forgot where it was. There's some ballroom, 4th floor, and every segment of the right was represented. So we had Catherine Timpf, who is the cute, nerdy blonde on Greg Gutfeld's show, was there, and she's short too. She's like 5'3". And I tried to talk to her and tell her, like, alt-right people are here, you should talk to them. It didn't seem like she had too much of an interest in that. And I met Peter Brimelow, and I met Richard Spencer, and I met Chuck Johnson, and I hung out with Milo. Milo did a great speech about Islam and how it's basically invading the West. Ann Coulter was supposed to be there. She wasn't. Pam Geller was there instead. And a Swedish nationalist politician named Geert Wheeling was also there. He did the first speech. And it was just a really fun party. I actually had some of my – I didn't mention this earlier. I was wearing my Punks for Trump t-shirt, and I sold off a couple, and I actually got interviewed by someone. And I don't know if you saw the quote. It's in The Atlantic. And she the first thing I said is, I'm a Nazi skinhead who wants to deport all the brown people. And she goes, what? Are you serious? And I go, no, I'm not serious. That was a joke. I'm just making fun of what people think of Trump supporters. She goes, so what are you about? And I go, Punk's for Trump. He's anti-establishment. Punk is anti-establishment. I go, Trump is the most punk rock candidate we've had in years. So
is this the same chick that wrote the hit piece on Forney?
No, but which one? I mean, there's a couple hit pieces written about him. If it was the Michelle Goldberg, I was actually there when he was interviewed for that.
Yeah, that one. Tell us about that one.
Oh, okay. So, that all actually came together because we ran into Roosh V, and we got in a line, and Roosh V had a megaphone, and there was a guy that was with him. I forgot his name. That was wearing pink shorts. And so we're like, all right, this is going to be good. So he's walking around and goes, this guy is wearing pink shorts. He is gay. We are gays for Trump. Washington, D.C. has a lot of gay people and transgendered people. Cleveland does not have any gay people that I see, or I don't see any transgender people. Cleveland is anti-trans and homophobic. Hillary Clinton does not support gay rights. Donald Trump does. So we're walking around the square. People are like looking at us like confused. They thought it was kind of funny. And then Michelle Goldberg comes up to us and she says, so you guys are Jewish white supremacists? I'm sorry, no. You're gay white supremacists? And I go, what?
Exactly, what?
And she goes, well, you're white supremacists, right? And you're gays for Trump. And I go, well, what are you talking about? Where are you getting this stuff from? And turns out, I go, who told you this? And turns out Daryl Jenkins told her to interview us that we're the face of the alt-right. And so I go, well, so then she interviews me, Forney, and a guy named Comrade Turner. I talked to her for about 90 minutes. Forney talked to her for about 45 minutes. And we gave her the most milquetoast, middle-of-the-road answers that she was not expecting. She goes, are you guys white supremacists? We're like, no. She goes, well, what do you believe? I go, what do you mean? We're Trump supporters. I think he's got reasonable immigration policies. Forney got a little more into race realism, just like, I told her, I go, look, I'm a 5'7" Jewish guy. I'm not trying to get into the NBA. I realize that the NBA is mostly black people because blacks are more athletic. So clearly there's some difference in the races. These are the type of answers we gave her, right? She didn't take any of them down, wrote 150 words, 2 paragraphs, called Forney a white supremacist, and the only thing she quoted him saying was Donald Trump is making it easier for people to express less popular opinions.
And that's it. So she pretty much just yeah, okay. So
sin of omission. Although it was one of the things that she did, I think it's worth noting that really actually pissed me off was she goes, can I get your guys' names? I go, sure. So I tell her my name. Forney gives her name. Conrad's like, Comrade Turner. He goes, I'm Comrade Turner. I'm giving you a fake name because my wife's a professor. I don't want to get her in trouble. And she goes, Turner? Like from the Turner Diaries? And I look at, not joking. I look at her and I go, "You did that on purpose." I go, "Hey Turner, do you know what the Turner Diaries are?" And he's like, "I have no idea what that is." And I go, "Do you see Michelle Goldberg? Do you see he has no idea what that is?" I go, "You just tried to peg us for white supremacists." I go, "What is going on? Why did you just say that? Why did you just try to throw us under the bus like that?" I go, "Did any of our answers give you any indication that we would be readers of the Turner Diaries?" And she goes, "Well, I mean, people with extreme views often think that their views aren't that extreme, that they're actually pretty normal." And I go, "No, you did it on purpose." I go, "Why Turner Diaries? Why not Turner Classic Movies?"
Right, right. Ted Turner.
Exactly. And I that was really sneaky and underhanded of you. I told her that blatantly. She goes, "Oh, I mean," and then we got into a whole thing about, she's like, "I'm liberal because of this." It was funny. And they 150 words, 2 paragraphs, and they called Fournier white supremacist. But the funniest thing is the picture they used. He's wearing they got a picture of him wearing his Miller Lite shirt. So that they got his Fournier wearing a Miller Lite shirt. That guy wears fucking like indie rock bands like Sonic Youth, and he's got the Miller Lite on his t-shirt. So they try to make him look like this dumb like hillbilly that it was.
Yeah, they try to make him look like a Joe Sixpack kind of guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's a trip. There was actually another article about him where he's wearing a St. Vincent t-shirt. Did you see that one?
No, I only saw the Goldberg piece.
He's wearing a St. Vincent t-shirt, and the comments are priceless. Like, "Oh my God, does she know that that a guy like this listens to her music?" And I thought that's such a trip.
So basically, this kind of proves though that you really can't have a conversation with these people. I mean, they go in with their preconceived notions, and there's no way of changing them.
Oh no, you can't change what they think, because anything you say will lead back to the same trap, because like the term race realism is not something you want to say to someone in the press. You want to say, "Yes, I think there are differences between the races, but that doesn't mean any of them are better than any others." That's like a nice, safe way to say it. But the best thing you can do is just make up absolutely completely ludicrous answers, just to see how far you can take it. That's what you want to do. So if I ever talk to these people again, I'm gonna make them just I don't want to just send them all back. I want to blow up the continent. It's just absolutely just ridiculous answers just to see what they say.
Yeah, I don't want to deport all the Mexicans. I just want to send back their heads. Something.
Yeah, exactly. We can cook them. We can barbecue them. They probably have a lot of protein. Their teeth can be used for ivory. And it's like, and they'll ask, "Have you seen that movie, The Most Dangerous Game?"
Have I? No, I haven't seen that.
Well, I mean, that's what I'd ask them. But if you haven't either, that's where the guy gets hunted. That's where the guy goes into the forest compound, and he becomes human prey.
Oh, I think I did see that. That's an older film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did see that movie.
So I could, so I would come up with, next time I'm going to come up with ridiculous answers like that, because you're never going to win with these people, so you might as well just have fun with them.
Yeah, just give them the most absurd answers just to troll the fuck out of them.
Right, exactly.
And then at the end you got to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm Jewish."
Well, actually I did. I at first I'm like, do I want to play the Jew card? That seems kind of cheap, because people often think I'm Irish because I have mutton chops. And so when I tell them I'm Jewish, they get they're like, "Well, why would you hang out with all these anti-Semites and Holocaust deniers, and are you a self-hating Jew?" And then I'd say, "Well, no. First of all, I've never had a bad experience with any of these people. I mean, they may some of these people, some of the alt-righters may very well be Holocaust deniers. I don't know. If they are, that's neither here nor there for me." And I tell them that when I met Matt Heimbach, I met Richard Spencer, and they were only friendly to me. They were not dicks at all. They didn't have any kind of standoffish attitude. And if they ask, I'll say, "Well, what do you mean? You come to the United States as a Jew, you escape Nazi Germany, you escape Soviet Russia, You're given all this opportunity. The only discrimination Jews have faced in the United States is like country clubs. Like, fine, fuck it, I can't play golf here. Like, who cares? Go play golf somewhere else. I mean, it's just so ridiculous that Jewish people want to act as if they want. I don't like they want to play like half play the minority card and then half act like they're white. It's, you can't have it both ways. You're either a minority or you're not. And I'm not. I don't consider myself a minority. So.
Right, right. Yeah, well, it was funny the story you said about the country club stuff, that, you know, that kind of thing went on in the 20s or 30s or whatever, and the Jews just basically bought the country club.
Yeah, it's like now we own it, so we can decide who comes in and out.
Yeah, that put an end to that, you know.
I do, yeah, and well, she was saying, oh, but what about that whole echo thing? That comes off as really anti-Semitic to me, and I go, who cares? Are you that sensitive? I go, first of all, it's not 100% false, because at the head of a lot of subversive movements are Jews. I mean, that's true. You know, the big question that people ask about a lot of this type of stuff, is it nature or nurture? Is it genetic or is it just part of the culture? If you say part of the culture, you've got some wiggle room and you're safe. If you say it's genetic, then you're a white supremacist. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that things like that, I personally don't care one way or another. People are like, yeah, I mean, some people said, like, I don't like the elites, but normal Jews who own businesses I have nothing against. I'm like, that works. I don't care. I'm not offended by that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, why would you give a shit? I mean, especially in a country as diverse as America. I mean, I mean, you know, whites under 30 can claim minority status now, you know.
Wait, whites under 30 can or cannot?
Can.
They can claim minority status?
Well, I mean, in the sense that they're no longer a majority. Say white people under 30.
Oh, gotcha. I thought, yeah, but they can't claim minority status when they go file for benefits and things like that.
Oh, no, of course not. I mean, whites could be like 2% of the population and they still wouldn't be allowed to do that.
And that's the thing that, you know, one of the things that drove me to the alt-right was that I legitimately feel like white people are, I mean, I consider myself a white person, ultimately. And some people may not think I'm like of, you know, that you need to be more of a Nordic stock or more Anglo-Saxon.
Well, we're gonna have the vote. We're probably gonna gift you Aryan status. But anyway, keep going.
Well, what I was saying was I think legitimately that white people really are kind of under attack. I think it takes a real ethnomasochist to not see that white Western culture, one, is good. I mean, it created the entire notion of civilization, and two, people are trying to dismantle it. It's like Jared Taylor, you know, he said, whites care about a species of animal that no one cares about. Like, what was this? Some kind of weird aardvark or something he mentioned is on the endangered species list. Does any other group of people even going to think about that?
Right. It's true. I never thought about it that way.
Well, I mean, that was in his speech. He said, whites care more than any other group of people. Whites care for non-whites more than non-whites care about non-whites. I'm like, and they're getting looked at like they're the worst people. And my other theory is that a lot of people that got into white identity wouldn't even have cared one way or another if black identity wasn't like shoved in their faces. Like, if you weren't constantly reminded in the news that you're a white person, you probably couldn't care less. I mean, I'm assuming couldn't care less about it, right?
Wait, so re-say that again? If you weren't...
If most people, I think, on the alt-right, I mean, I'm going by this stuff that Jim Goad said, wouldn't have thought twice about their whiteness if they weren't constantly reminded about it in the news over and over again.
Oh, yeah, and constantly demonized, too. Like, I think that's
right.
Probably what a lot of the Trump support is, like, whites are kind of like saying, well, whoa, hold on a second here. I think, like you said, a lot of people didn't really give it a second thought, but now they're under attack just for being white. And they're like, what are you talking about? I did everything right in life. You know, I mean, I got a job, I raised a family, I pay my taxes, I don't break the law, and all of a sudden I'm the bad guy?
Not only that, your best friend growing up was Tyrone, who you guys always hung out. I mean, people say the thing that just drives me up the wall is that every time you say you're not racist, you're in denial about being racist. So it's like, so what does that mean? That mean I have to say I am racist so that you think I'm not? Does that mean I have to, like, because, you make a point, like, oh, blacks, you make a very mundane point, like, blacks need to work harder to achieve more, and I want them to achieve more because I want everyone to be an accomplished person. You make a statement as milquetoast, middle of the road as that, and someone goes, oh, well, you just don't get how it is because you're a racist and you have white privilege. I mean, what kind of response is that? And so then you say, no, I'm not a racist. I have black friends. Oh, well, of course you would say that. Every racist claims he's not a racist. So then you're just like, fuck you, then I am a racist. Like, okay. Like, what? At what point can are you given leeway? What point are you officially off the hook?
Yeah, I mean, you could actually stand in the middle of town square and engage in an act of self-flagellation, saying, I'm sorry, I'm white, I'm so, and just whip the shit out of yourself with like one of those Roman torture things that they, like the scene from the Passion of the Christ or something, and that still wouldn't satisfy these people. You know what I mean?
Well, and it's funny about that is that one guy that got on my case is this was one guy got on my case, and like, I'm not, like I said before, I'm not a white nationalist. I'm not a white identitarian. I want everyone to be able to feel comfortable around who they're with. So if you happen to leave downtown Detroit for a whiter neighborhood because there's no crime, you're not a bad person for doing that. But this guy is whiter than me in a sense that I've hung out with the Dindus, like the downtown Detroit scummy bars, where I've actually asked, like, I did karaoke at one, and I go, is it okay if I play my honky music? And the guy's like, yeah, man, it's no big deal. I like that rock music too. Now so I'm singing AC/DC in front of, like, black people, not hipster black people, not the singer for the block party, not the kind of, not like some dude who wears skin tight jeans and he's black, but he talks like we talk. But I'm talking, like ghetto blacks, and they're like, think it's cool, singing along, like, all right, and I don't really have that kind of like, oh, you go to Detroit, you're just gonna get shot. Like, it's dangerous, it's a total shithole, it's a third world country, but people who criticize you for being racist wouldn't set foot in a place like that.
Oh yeah, isn't that funny though? Like the biggest the biggest people that are always bitching about racism and things like that, they tend to be these very rich white people who live in these gated communities who send their kids to these elite private schools, yet they're calling everybody else racist and they're against school choice. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. But the being in the scene that I'm in, knowing a bunch of hipsters because I'm into that stuff, these guys want to be the real deal, so they'll move into shitty-ass neighborhoods to prove that they're real hardcore on the street and they can live anywhere, but they'll only be amongst themselves. So then when they encounter real black people who mug them and rob them and steal their cars, then they're like, well, I mean, I know, then they're like, either they take it like a champ, they're like, well, this is all part of the revolution and I deserve this, or I know some girl complains about rape culture because black men hoot and holler at her. You know what I mean? They find some other scapegoat for why blacks are now harassing them for moving into a black neighborhood and being white hipsters in it. You know what I mean?
No, I'm waiting for one of these guys to have his girlfriend raped in front of him and saying, well, it's okay that they raped my girlfriend because it makes up for the centuries of white supremacy. So, they're entitled to rape her. I mean, it's reparations.
It's, and the funny thing is, this guy I was like talking about, I mean, the thing is, with alt-right stuff, you can get alt-right-esque literature not even in the alt-right. You can read Thomas Sowell, the black libertarian, and he'll tell you all about how slavery had barely anything, it had nothing to do with racism and just was about economics and how Irish people were enslaved and Scottish people were enslaved and British people were enslaved. And you tell this to this guy and he's like, you're just whitewashing slavery. It's like, No, roots is a lie. They're blackwashing slavery.
Yeah, but they don't want to hear that because they want to have this very simplistic worldview because it fits their narrative. And ultimately, I think, Edwin, I don't think they want to think too hard.
No, of course not, because uh, the thing is, ultimately, what I think the alt-right really is a search for the ultimate un-PC truth about the world. Are you familiar with Feral House books?
Uh, the name doesn't ring a bell, but tell me some of the titles.
Well, David Cole's book Republican Party Animals published under
Oh,
it.
yeah, I know. Well, okay, I know David Cole's work well. Yeah.
Anne's doing a book for that, and the publisher for
So we
that.
know her name is Ann Sturzinger, who you're referring to.
Yep, Ann Sturzinger is doing a book for them, and Feral House, the guy who owns that company, he is loved by liberals because he's weird. You know what I mean? Like, he's so weird. But he himself, I mean, this is his own words, like 15 years ago, said that there is absolutely no way you can look at what's happening to the United States, the balkanization of the country, the way the interaction of the races, with 100% honesty and not be called a racist or a neo-Nazi. Like,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like, there's absolutely no way you can look at it. You get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, my theory on I think I mentioned this in the part of the interview that got clipped because I screwed up in the beginning, but I was talking about how I've always been a student of history, like a big lover of history since high school. I'd always do my reading on history, my non-academic reading. I just do it on history because I always found it enjoyable. But my theory is just from studying history and the current manifestation of how race relations are playing out in the United States. I believe that the U.S. will balkanize, and probably in a violent way, similar to what happened in former Yugoslavia once the Soviet Union collapsed.
So you don't think, and again, maybe this is a pipe dream, you don't think that Donald Trump's presidency will all of a sudden, within the next 4 years, all the sanctuary cities will be made illegal. Everyone who's not officially documented will be sent back to the countries they came from. People will start looking at things in a more Eurocentric, pro-American kind of way. Blacks will start behaving themselves more. Cops will be treated with more respect. You don't think this is going to happen if he gets elected?
Well, even if half of those things you said happened, I don't believe in the long run it will make any difference. I just believe the axiom of history is that diversity plus proximity equals conflict.
Well, sure, I get that. I'm just saying you don't think that the diversity and to say you're against diversity, a lot of people say that's horrible. I
Well,
don't,
I'm not saying I'm
again.
against it or for it. I'm just saying that's what. I mean, it's just what's true. It's like if I say 2 + 2 = 4, it's not that I'm for that. I mean, I don't really have a dog in that fight. That just happens to be true. I mean,
Oh yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I made the point that multiculturalism works if the correct cultures mingle together. In the I don't know if it proves it, but living in the area I live, we've got the Japanese restaurant, the Chinese restaurant, we've got the Arabs that run the liquor store, and I mean, we don't. I think when there's a lot of money in an area, and the different cultures can get along because no one's struggling for resources. You know what I mean? But
well, no, that's true. And let me just speak to that point because it's right on something I know a lot about. Like, for example, the troubles that they had in Northern Ireland, going back to my people, my tribe, so to speak. Both my parents were born and raised in Ireland, and my mother's side of the family was deeply involved in the IRA. My grandfather, for example, fought in the Eastern Rising of 1916. And what happened in Ireland was once they experienced this huge economic boost in the 1990s, that kind of led to a quelling of the quote-unquote troubles, as they were called over there, where joining the IRA didn't seem like a good option when you could make a fortune working for Microsoft or Intel, that both opened up offices over there.
right, so when you have cultures that know how to be prosperous, then you can actually mix them together and create the so-called melting pot or cultural stew or salad bowl that is allegedly what the United States people claim it is. The problem is that we have cultures that are not that good at adapting, and that's where the trouble starts. Because obviously, we have Arabs, but they're not Muslims, and these Arabs are Christians. So they open liquor stores, and they're not the brightest people in the world. They're usually really macho, but they love the United States. They have their liquor store. They are very friendly to you, and they have nice houses, and they keep to themselves, and they're normal neighbors you say hi to. I live a stone's throw away from Dearborn, and that's majority Muslim.
Yeah, I think we call it Dearbornistan now, don't we?
Dearbornistan, absolutely, and that area is. I'm not gonna lie and give you dramatize it and say that I go there and it's just Sharia law, but definitely the atmosphere is different. If they want to go out in the middle of the street and just start praying, they can do that. They've taken over in a matter of speaking. It's Sharia law isn't officially documented, but no one's gonna stop them. And they're treated with kid gloves. And every time one of the funniest situations in our area was there was a mosque that was going to go up, and all the Chaldeans, that's the Christian Arabs or Chaldeans, protested against it because of so-called zoning issues. They couldn't put a mosque up, and all the Chaldeans were like, "Yeah, no mosque, all right," because Chaldeans are from Iraq, so they know what it's like living in Baghdad under Muslim rule. So they're like, "Fuck that shit," and it was I was like, yeah, my niggas, like cool, like you don't want it, I don't want it, great. It was awesome. Of course, when I expressed my joy that the mosque didn't go up, I was called a racist. But
of course,
that's another.
Well, I mean, it's getting to the point now where you can't cross the street without somebody. You're I think you ever heard that new thing now that they talk about, like you're appropriating their culture. Like if a white guy acts black, like you're. I don't quite understand it exactly, but you've heard about this, right?
Well, so when you were going to high school, I don't know, how old are you?
I'm 47.
Oh wow, okay. So when I was going to high school, the white kids that acted black back before political correctness took over. We called them Wiggers. We just were like, yep, they're the Wiggers, and hats to the side, like, yo, homie, what's up? Yeah, homie, blah, blah, blah. And they're listening to Tupac and Snoop Doggy Dogg and Notorious B.I.G. And they lived in trailers, in trailer parks, and they didn't experience any more real life danger than we did, than someone of a more upper middle class stature did. But they acted like they were these tough, hard ass dudes, and they were real assholes. And they're like, yo, faggot, eh. And I'm like thinking, they're definitely appropriating black ghetto culture, but we can make fun of them because it's white people doing it, but we can't make fun of the blacks who do it because that's racist. so yeah, we called them Wiggers.
Yeah, we used to. Well, I don't think we quite used that when I was in. That's an older phrase. That started to come out in the late '80s, early '90s. Wiggers.
What, Wigger?
Yeah. We were.
So
I grew up in New York City, so we were kind of at the vanguard of using those terms.
Oh, so you did use that word?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have to be PC, so we don't say Wigger, we say Wigga, because it's like nigga. But it's the same thing. It's like, pull up your damn pants. I mean, it's like, and so now that I'm much less sensitive about that. I'm like, how is putting grills on your teeth, getting a tattoo on your face, wearing your pants really low, how is that like something that you want to represent black culture? I mean, that's not a culture. And I'm actually reading the Thomas Sowell book, Black Rednecks and White Liberals, which explains how the black ghetto culture actually was adopted basically from Scottish culture, the first hillbillies in the United States, and how just it transferred from there, and how it's nothing more than just low white trash culture just through a black prism.
Yeah, he said it's lowbrow culture, low culture. I haven't read that book. There's some criticism of that argument that I have read. I've yet to read the book, so I'm not gonna try to dissect his arguments. That book has actually been recommended to me by several people, so I do plan on reading it. But because we're coming up on our time here, but I want to ask you, could you tell us more about your podcast and what your plans for it are, and some of the things, some of the guests you've had on, some of the guests maybe you're planning on having on, that kind of thing. Just hey, go for it. This is your time here.
Okay, sure. The podcast, it's called Savage Hippie. The name Savage Hippie was actually stolen from a Melvins song. I don't know. Are you familiar with the Melvins?
No, I'm a punk rock neophyte. Ashamed to say.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's fine. The Melvins have a song called Savage Hippie, and initially it's actually my blog was called that, and the point of it was that in the 60s, it wasn't all love and peace and hippies. It was you had the Hells Angels, and you had Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, and you had Charles Manson. So the 60s was not all peace and love. So the Savage Hippie term is like some cool 60s psychedelia, but without the hippie politics behind it. In fact, Alice Cooper could be called the Savage Hippie because he had long hair and he was crazy, but he was a capitalist. At the core of it, he blatantly said he loves money, and he was all pro-Vietnam War. So he was anything but a hippie, but he looked like one. And Ted Nugent, same thing. So that was the basis of that. And then I started the podcast just to interview people that I think would be fun to interview. So I interviewed Forney, I interviewed David Cole, I interviewed Clayton V, who did the Punks for Trump t-shirts, and he does the artwork for Bernard Chapin's channel. Have you seen that?
Oh, cool. Yeah. No, I'm familiar with Bernard Chapin. Yeah, go ahead.
So the channel where you see all this stuff, where you see Chapin and Rockin' Mr. E and Davis Arini's faces superimposed on people, that's all Clayton V's work. So, and he did the thing with the Trigglypuff, like roasting SJWs on a daily basis. That's all him.
I didn't know that was him. Okay, great.
Yeah, you should listen to that because he actually works. He's an editor who works in editing in the adult film industry, and we talk about that for a while. It's actually pretty interesting.
Well, the only podcast I've listened to yours so far, I will listen to them all. I think you're up to 6 now, or maybe it's 7. I listened to the David Cole one.
Okay.
That was a great podcast, by the way. Kudos.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was a lot of fun too.
No idea that who would have thought that David Cole was like this connoisseur of zombie movies. I would have never guessed that shit.
I know you learn these things about these people because you don't. They're known for one thing, but everyone's got their other hobbies. But I also interviewed Ann Sturzinger, who I actually call her Ann Sturzinger, and I asked her how she wants to pronounce with a soft G or a hard G, and she doesn't care. So I interviewed her for one, and then last night I did one with both of them, and they're now actually going forward. They are going to be my co-hosts.
Oh, great! All right. So that was. Yeah. I think I was half. I was teasing you guys. I said that was three Jewish Nazi cat lovers. That's what you should call it. But you got to give me credit for the name.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think I might actually call that episode that. The thing is, Sturzinger, I don't think she's Jewish. I think a lot of people.
She's it's an inside joke between me and Ann. She's a crypto Jew.
She's a crypto, yeah, because she said, actually, I mistook her for another woman. Maybe you know who this is. Maybe you listened to it. It was a Daily Shoah podcast, and a woman actually. Do you know if you listen to that one where they answer the questions of the Addicting Info Are You a Nazi quiz?
No, I mean I've listened to like maybe 2 episodes of the Daily Show. It's too long. Sometimes it goes on for hours and hours, but I've listened to a couple of episodes.
Well, one I stumbled upon, and they find addicting info, and they ask, "Are you a Nazi?" quiz, and it was just asking conservatives if you're a Nazi and comparing conservative talking points and saying these are all Nazi things that Nazis did, and I was on the floor laughing, and I thought that it was Anne who did it because it was a woman answering the questions. But it was someone else. So that means that there's another female shitlord out there.
You know what? Maybe it is Anne. We'll have to see.
Well, I asked her about it, and she's like, I've never even listened to a Daily Shoah, so I don't know. But yeah, Savage Hippie is my podcast. It's got a sort of Mad Magazine, irreverent, punk rock edge. A lot of rambling on different topics. It's zombie films, punk rock, all kinds of stuff.
I just got to say for our listeners, you will love it. I mean, actually, I did listen to Anne's. So I heard 2 of your podcasts, and they were great because you do talk a shitload about music, especially punk scene, and I got to say that Edwin knows more about punk rock music than any person I know. I mean, you know your shit.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's just music in general is a hobby of mine that I got really into. So it's interesting that people see that you can do more than one thing. They're surprised, like, wow, you like this and you're a Trump supporter? How is that possible? And I go, why is it not possible? Why do you have to be one thing? Why do you have to be pigeonholed?
Yeah, people are multidimensional. Yeah, and you're not just into punk rock, for example. Like one thing that we share in common is we're both into 70s classic rock, which I'm also into.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm into a lot of hard rock and classic rock from the 70s as well. I mean, I like it all, and I just like to incorporate these things because I would tell you a really good story if you have like another 2 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
All right, so there's a band called Today Is the Day, and they are on the noise rock. It's they mix like a heavy metal noise rock band. If you listen to it, you'll get what I mean. And their guitarist singer guy is named Steve Austin, and not the wrestler, obviously. And they were playing in Pontiac, and I had them stay at my mom's house. Because I told them, if you stay here, your shit won't get messed with. You can leave your van in the driveway, and no one's gonna get into it. So they show up, and Steve Austin's like 6'3", and he's got a Confederate flag tattooed on his arm, and he's got a Confederate flag with a snake tattooed on his arm, and we're having a conservative conversation with like a rock band. You know, he hates Obama. He actually said, I live in Orland, Maine because I didn't want to live in a big city around a lot of blacks. And this is a guy that's in a band that if I were to publicize that to an underground music newspaper that he said that, I could like fuck with his career. And I'm not gonna. I don't think anyone's gonna listen to that, right?
Do I need to edit this out?
I don't think so. I don't think he's gonna. I mean, I'd be very shocked if this came back to him.
Okay, all right. Just want to make sure. Go ahead.
Maybe edit out the. Well, I don't know. It's fine. It shouldn't be a big deal. And we're talking about these topics. Like, if you go into leftist bands, all they talk about is their fucking politics. They can't shut up about their politics. Bands write songs. I mean, about how Trump is a Nazi and all this. Conservatives are not. So here we are talking about right of center topics in between talking about rock and roll stuff. And I'm like, why can't we do this? Why can't we talk about these type of topics with bands? It's just really refreshing to be able to have this kind of conversation where instead of constantly bashing Trump and laughing at right wingers and they're a bunch of idiots who believe in creationism. Why can't we have a conversation like that? So it was just a really cool experience. And then the next day, he meets my mom, this 4'11" Jewish woman, meets this guy with a Confederate flag tattooed on his arm, and I'm like, oh, this is Steve Austin of Today's a Day, and she's like, oh, if I knew that you were going to be staying here, I would have accommodated you. And he goes, ma'am, we were well accommodated for. Don't worry about it. You have a wonderful home. And it was one of the most surreal experiences, and that's what I want to bring to the scene is people to be able to talk about these types of topics, in that world, because everyone thinks that if you're into the arts, you're necessarily a leftist, and that's absolute bullshit, because it's contradictory, because they're all into anarchy and then they want more government, and it just doesn't make any sense. So it's just really cool to be able to talk to someone like that who has your views. One last thing for the
go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, and so the other thing is we also wanted to get Ross. Do you know the band? The Dictators? In Manowar?
Yes.
Okay, Ross Friedman, Ross the boss of Manowar. We're trying to get him on our podcast as well because he's a huge Trump supporter.
Oh, that'd be a great coup to get him on.
Oh, for sure.
And so we're going to wrap it up now. Is there anything you want to add to go out with? Anything you want to say? Last words?
No, I thank you so much for having me on here. I appreciate it. I had a great time. And Savage Hippie, if your listeners, you want to be on my podcast, we can do one as well.
Yeah, sure. We'll work that out. But so anyway, links will be in the description. It's Savage Hippie podcast. Edwin also has a blog as well. Link will also be in the description. I highly recommend listening. His podcasts are a real blast because they're very organic and as you can tell from listening to this, that he just has a way he gets people to open up, and they're a lot of fun. And he's an extremely personable guy. And I'm expecting really, really great things for him in the future. And I think that his podcast can only grow and become more and more popular. And he's got a really good heart too. You got to admit, if you've been listening to this, you can tell he's a good guy. He's a good guy, not a good goy, but a good guy.
Oh, shucks.
But anyway, so we're gonna close it out. To everybody listening, thank you. Take care, and please like, comment, and subscribe.